Welcome to the channel. My name is Yacht. My family and I are documenting our journey to find a place where we can be happy, safe, enjoy a healthy outdoor lifestyle with a relatively low cost of living. So tag along during our search for this special place. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. Today's video is on the 5 top things I wish I knew before visiting Portugal, and ultimately in deciding whether or not I would relocate to Portugal. So let's just jump right in. First thing first, Portugal is not as inexpensive as people say. Now, I think this is all relative, depending on where you came from, what city you were before you decided to move to Portugal, i.e., if you're from California, where everything is super expensive, you have $1 million houses. Coming to Portugal, yeah, you're going to think it's inexpensive. But coming from Florida, I grew up in rural Florida. You can get a 2,000 square foot house for $250,000. Groceries are relatively cheap. So when I visited Portugal and started researching the housing in the areas that I was considering living, so Lisbon, Caldas de Rainha area, São Martinho de Porto, Lagos, Par de Luz, Tavira, I kind of looked all over the place. Housing wasn't as cheap as I thought it would be, which was shocking to me. On average, for no matter where I looked, Caldas de Rainha, outside of Caldas de Rainha along the coast, and Salir de Porto, São Martinho de Porto, Nazaré, $500,000 for a decent insulated house, I guess with proper insulation, was the norm. 500,000 euros. That's a lot of money. So, yeah, I could probably save some money by living outside of those cities and, in the rural areas. But I want to be closer to those bigger cities where I can enjoy some of those amenities. So, yeah, it was definitely shocking when it came to looking for a particular house in those areas. So, from a housing perspective, it's not as inexpensive as people think. So that's the first thing to be aware of. And in that same vein, just shopping in general, clothing was kind of expensive. I think I would, when we do relocate, I would actually come back to the US and buy clothes and then go back to Portugal, So it's just, they were expensive. Shoes expensive as well, and groceries weren't as inexpensive as I thought too. The one time that I did go grocery shopping, I went a couple times, but the first time I went to a market, which I just bought some fruit and stuff like that, which was pretty reasonable. But when I went to a proper grocery store, I went to a couple of them, it wasn't as inexpensive as I thought it would be. As everyone claims, oh, I save so much money on. No, I guess it depends on where you are, but at least here in Florida, our groceries aren't that expensive. So, just be aware of that. Everything is relative, of course, but you may not find Portugal to be as inexpensive as everyone says. Now, you'll be able to save some money on some other things if you're not relocating, such as healthcare, insurance, that type of thing. You'll save a lot of money on that. Schooling, just general things that are provided by the government. So, yeah, you may end up saving some money ultimately. but you need to consider fully, will you actually be saving some money when it comes to those necessities such as housing and food and that type of thing. So that's it on that. The second thing that I wish I knew, which is good, were that Portuguese people are amazing. I mean, you kind of hear, Portuguese people will take a little time to warm up to you and etc. I didn't find that to be the case. They were warm from initial meeting. I mean, they were so helpful, so generous. So, I mean, anytime I need anything, of course, I'm trying to speak and communicate in the few Portuguese words that I know, and always saying thank you and, obrigado. And I'm, just trying to communicate, And a few times where we couldn't communicate because I can't speak Portuguese yet, is that, they would bring someone in that could speak English, and I thought that was so generous of them to even attempt to bring someone in that spoke English to help me and assist me, which was amazing. They didn't have to do that. And everyone I met was super warm, super friendly, always speaking to me, saying hello. So it was amazing to because coming from here in the US, it's not always the case. So that was eye-opening. Now, I will say that I didn't have 100%, great experience with the people in Portugal. And the one instance was actually from a non-Portuguese person. And in this particular instance, I was down in Lagos, taking drone footage along the coast, along the beaches. And I didn't fly over anybody. I stayed directly over the coast. You can check my Lagos video, for reference. But I didn't fly over anyone. I didn't take pictures of anyone. Strictly the coast. But some white guy, Caucasian, clearly, I would say probably from North Europe, had the audacity to complain to me that he wished he could shoot my drone down, which I thought was kind of odd. I was in a public space. I didn't fly over anybody. I didn't take pictures of anybody. So I asked him politely, well, why? Why would you want to shoot my drone down? I'm in a public spot. I don't think you have any, expectation of privacy here. I'm not flying over your house, over your backyard, zooming in while you're in the pool or whatever. So why would you want to shoot my drone down? And he was like, because you can see things that I can't see. You can zoom in and da-da-da-da. And I was like, well, what's the difference if I had a camera with a big zoom lens on it? You wouldn't shoot that person's camera out their hand. Everyone here that was along the railway, the walkway, and at the southern point of the Ponte Padre in Lagos had their cameras, taking pictures of everything. So what was the difference? Long story short, he had no answer. But that was the only bad experience that I had with someone, and it wasn't even a Portuguese person. So, it is what it is. There are people like that everywhere, but, all that to say, I'm happy that Portuguese people are very warm, inviting, and, it was a great experience. Third thing I wish I knew and realized is in regards to the population of Portugal. You don't realize that 10 million or so isn't a lot. I'm in the state of Florida where we have roughly 25 million, I think, people that live in the state of Florida. So, you kind of think about it relatively that, yeah, Portugal isn't that big compared to Florida, but, when you go to the cities, you expect to see, at least some people and, people in the street and stuff like that. But while I was there, some of the villages and towns and cities were quite empty. which I didn't expect, because you hear people talking about these particular places in blogs and stuff like that, and on various YouTube channels, and you have this expectation that you're going to see a lot of people, and sometimes I would see no one, which was kind of shocking to me until while I was in Portugal, I started researching the populations of these places and realized that, holy moly, in comparison to the US or, France and stuff like that, where some of these towns, even though they're towns, they still have easily 100,000 people in them. It was a little shocking, I mean, even in Caldish, where I believe there's like 50,000 people, it didn't feel like 50,000 people, And in Lagos, it was like 22,000 people. And I mean, it kind of felt like it. But then I went to some places like, São Martinho do Porto, and I think there's maybe like 3,000 or 4,000 people that live there year round, and it felt like 1,000 people. So it's kind of eye opening, and that's something you need to consider, is that when you're there, some of these places may feel empty until the summer and stuff like that. So, definitely keep that in mind. The fourth thing that I'll touch on is that even though Portugal is actually small in size and comparatively to, places like states in the US or, neighboring countries and like Spain and stuff, there's just so much to see. So many places to visit, so many landmarks, it's so much information that I was there roughly 2 weeks, and I feel like I didn't even scratch the surface. There were tons of things that I just had to cross off my list because I got so involved in checking out these areas and towns and villages. Or I spent 2 or 3 days in them because I didn't realize I liked it so much. So I just ran out of time. So I understand why, a lot of people who are considering immigrating to Portugal, they take months. They take months exploratory trips to check out all these places, from all the way from Braga all the way down to Lagos and Albufeira and the Algarve, because you need the time to check out all these places thoroughly to decide if this is the spot for you. So, I understand some people want to get out of the U.S. and, in my case, immediately, because of what's going on with, safety concerns. I can discuss that for another video. But, I would say in that regard, it's just land in Portugal, rent, and then explore Portugal and see where, you find your best life. So that's something to remember when you're deciding on, immigrating to Portugal. The last thing that I wish I knew, it involves dogs. A couple times I would say the two places where I realized it the most was in Praia da Luz and Foz do Areio. I could hear dogs barking all throughout the day. I could hear them barking all throughout the night. And on the sidewalks, dog poop, So that was a little eye-opening to me and shocking. I didn't expect it, culturally completely different. But, just something to be aware of. And is that, some places, if you're not used to that, then it may bother you. And that was one of my takeaways from actually considering those places, was that I couldn't deal with it, with the constant barking and having to worry about, stepping in stray dog poop and stuff like that. It was shocking in a sense, but I'm sure you get used to it, and you'll be careful to look down when you're walking on the sidewalk. But it is what it is, it's fine. But there's just something that, to be aware of when you're exploring these places, and make sure you stay the night in them, and you're not just visiting during the day. Spend the night in these places, see how it is, because it may change your perception of that particular place that you're looking to immigrate to. So that's my top 5. So for the folks that stuck around, I do have a bonus. And the bonus thing that I wish I knew were that some of these towns and villages appear to be so overrun with immigrants from Britain, from the US, that it doesn't even feel like a Portuguese town anymore. And I denote Praia de Luz as one of those towns. Everyone I met spoke English with a British accent. And it was shocking. I thought I would see more Portuguese people. And there were a couple times where I would go an entire day and I would interact with people who spoke English from an English-speaking country. And it was kind of weird, and, being in Portugal, because I have the expectation that if I'm in Portugal, I want to live, and do as the Portuguese do, and fully immerse yourself. And in some of these towns and cities, you may not get that full immersion if that's what you're looking for. So there's just something to keep in mind. But anyway, that's it. I know I kind of rambled on too long, but those are the 5 top things that I wish I knew before visiting Portugal. But anyway, thank you guys for sticking around this long. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them down in the comments down below. And as always, I'll respond to them as soon as I can. All right, thank you.